where evil and poverty shall be done away with. Country of brotherhood, where all success shall be founded on service, and honor shall be given to the deserving. Country of peace, where government shall rest on the will of the people and the love for the common good. Bless the efforts of those who struggle to make this vision living reality. Inspire and strengthen our people, that they may give time, thought, and sacrifice to speed the day of the coming beauty of Ghana and Africa. Amen. Honourable members, the votes and proceedings of Wednesday, 7 July 2021. Page 1. Page 2. Page 3. Page 4. Page 5. Page 6. Page 7. Yes, Honourable Member for Wa West.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Page 7, item number 20. I was present yesterday, but I'm marked absent here. Thank you, Speaker.
Very well. The table office will take note. Page 8. Page 9. Page 10. Page 11. Page 12. Page 13. Page 14. Page 15. Page Honorable the Chairman, were you saying something?
Mr. Speaker, not at.
Page 16. Page 17. Subject to the corrections made. The votes and proceedings of Wednesday, the 7th July 2021 is hereby adopted as a true record of proceedings. Honorable Minister for Health, are you on your feet? Oh, very well. Yes, Leader.
Speaker, with your leave, we'll seek your indulgence to vary the order of business.
We have just concluded votes and proceedings.
Speaker, I was seeking your kindness, your kind indulgence for us to vary the order of business and to allow the Minister for Defense to make an important statement, after which we can take questions. Speaker.
Yes, Honorable Minority Leader.
Speaker, where are your hands? Since the Prime Express with you. Thank you.
Very well. The business statement is hereby varied. The Minister for Defense is invited to make the statement.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, exactly a week ago, a member of Parliament, precisely the minority, raised an issue of public importance I did promise the people of Ghana that I'll be back to report on what has happened between then and today. And Mr. Speaker, I'm glad to report on the statement on the alleged brutalities by young soldiers of 10 Mechanized Battalion in Wa Township. Mr. Speaker, on July 1st, 2021, 86 young soldiers of the 10th Mechanized Battalion in Wa stormed Tindama, a suburb of Wa municipality of the Upper West region, in search of a colleague's smartphone which was allegedly stolen. The young soldiers assaulted some members of the community, and this went viral on various social media platforms. This incident triggered total condemnation on many popular radio stations across the country. Subsequently, Mr. Speaker, on the 2nd of July 2021, a delegation led by the Chief of the Army Staff visited Wa to assess the situation. The Chief of the Army Staff was rendering an unqualified apology to the Wa populace for the action of the young soldiers. The military high command's resolve to ensure that the necessary actions and sanctions are meted out to those found culpable. Mr. Speaker, to ascertain the circumstances that led to the brutalities, the military high command was tasked to collaborate with the National Intelligence Bureau to investigate the above-mentioned case. Subsequently, a four-man team made up of Colonel B.Z. Ayurugo as the team leader, Lieutenant Colonel B.J.B. Edua, who is a member, Francis Abuaji from NIB, National Investigation Bureau, who is also a member, and Mr. Maxwell Dasa, also from the NIB, were tasked to do so. Mr. Speaker, the team arrived in Wa on Sunday, the 4th of July, 2021, and received its initial briefing by the commanding officer of the 10th Mechanized Battalion. The team was also briefed by the regional minister, Dr. Hafiz bin Saleh, and also Mr. Alexander Awudu, the regional commander of the National Intelligence Bureau. GCOP Francis Abuaji Nyako, the Upper West Police Commander, also did brief the team. Mr. Speaker, the team also visited Mr. Gafaru Mohammed, one of the victims who had surgery on his right fractured thigh and had been on admission at the Upper West Regional Hospital since Friday, the 2nd July 2021. Again, the team visited the various incidents in Wa Township with all the victims together, except Mr. Gafaru Mohammed, to ascertain and collaborate the testimonies of the various people assaulted. Mr. Speaker, the team have established the following. One, that on 30th June 2021, one of the soldiers alleged that his phone was snatched from him at about 1800 hours, that's 6 p.m., at Tindana Junction. The soldier informed his colleague on Thursday, the 1st July 2021, at 12:30 hours, who in turn informed the duty officer on the same day. The duty officer, Mr. Speaker, is reported to have permitted the troops to go to town to search for the missing phone. At about 12:45 hours, this consequently led to the brutalities in the Wa Township. So far, Mr. Speaker, in the course of the incident, 11 people suffered various degrees of injury. 4 of them were admitted at the municipal hospital. 3 were treated and discharged. The 4th person, Mr. Gafaru Mohammed, was later transferred to the Upper West Regional Hospital where he was successfully operated upon. Currently, the victim is responding to treatment. Additionally, Mr. Speaker, victims interrogated have reported the loss of 13 mobile phones, a cycle motor, and an amount of 1,460 Ghana cedis. However, 7 mobile phones and the tricycles have since been retrieved and returned to the owners, but no money has yet been retrieved. Again, Mr. Speaker, with the exception of the duty officer, all personnel who were on duty on the day of the incident have been charged, tried, and punished as appropriate. The various forms of punishment given to these officers are as follows. Mr. Speaker, the orderly sergeant, who was a staff sergeant, has been reduced to corporal. It's big, 10 years difference. Mr. Speaker, the guard commander, who was a corporal, has been reduced to private soldier. The sentry on duty, Mr. Speaker, who was a lance corporal, has been reduced to private soldier. Mr. Speaker, the trial of the duty officer, who is a lieutenant, will however commence on or before Wednesday, 14th July 2021. All the above trials and punishment are without prejudice to the outcome of the subjects under various forms of investigation. 8 other soldiers who were deeply involved or visibly identified in various videos brutalizing some citizens have been charged, tried, and awarded 30 days each by a disciplinary board chaired by the commanding officer. The remaining soldiers who were also involved in the incident but not identified as brutalizing officers will all be transferred out of the region immediately. At the time of the incident, Mr. Speaker, both the regional minister and the commanding officer were in Tamale and Accra, respectively, on official duties. Mr. Speaker, notwithstanding the above incident and other incidents, it must be stated clearly that the members of the Ghana Armed Forces, and precisely the men in uniform, the military, are well disciplined, well trained, and respected across the world for their professionalism. The swift action taken by the military high command, amongst other reasons, is to reinforce the sense of discipline amongst the troops, and also to safeguard the worldwide reputation of being a professional armed force that members of the Ghanaian Armed Forces are known for. It is in this regard that government will continue to re-equip the armed forces to enable them carry out their duty of protecting us and our territory. Mr. Speaker, to conclude, I am glad to inform members that I have personally paid the regional minister the medical bills of the people affected. These bills were submitted to the regional minister through the medical director of the Upper West Regional Hospital and the medical superintendent of the Wa Municipal Hospital. Let me reiterate that other bills that will be brought to the attention of the regional minister would also be paid. Mr. Speaker and honorable members, thank you for your attention. Thank you very much.
Yes, Honorable Leader.
Speaker, Let me thank the Minister for Defense for a swift response to a legitimate concern raised by us on the floor of this House as representatives of the people to unjustified attacks on innocent citizens in Wa. While I find the sanctions reassuring, I like to further encourage the Minister and to paraphrase his words. The duty of the armed forces is to protect the territorial integrity of our country, not more. And therefore, if in his words, as he said, and Mr. Speaker, again, I paraphrase him, 86 troops were asked to go for a search for a phone. That is not acceptable. That is not their mandate. A few miscreants should not debase the standing of the Ghana Armed Forces as a disciplined, professional entity that owes us a responsibility in keeping the peace, not undermining the peace, and not leading the breakdown of law and order. Mr. Speaker, we are sure when the Honorable Rashid Pelpo returned, he briefed me on the 2nd July meeting where the unqualified apology was rendered. But Mr. Speaker, the implications are sometimes dire, because once this happens, you are breaking down civil-military relations. The trust and faith of the people of Wa in the Ghana Armed Forces can be undermined. So, Mr. Speaker, I want to thank him for the swift response. We will monitor the outcome of the investigations. He has further assured us that a lieutenant colonel will be put on trial. Some he has already come giving us what decisions have been taken. We hope that their right to a fair trial, even as men and women of the armed forces, have been respected. But Mr. Speaker, it raises just one policy issue which I believe, Mr. Speaker, you can direct. In the world today, there is technology and application to trace missing phones. Ghana should take advantage of it. The Minister for Defense and Interior and the Ministry of Communication, all you need to do is to provide an opportunity for people to be able to register the phones. When you go into the back of the phone, there is a particular exclusive number. I know some phones have it. It's easier when it is iPhone, but Android does have the application where you can trace it. So the military, we insist, it is not within their rights, neither is it within their power to go a searching for a missing phone. That is wrong, and that we will not accept. These sanctions, I believe, will allow for some order and send a signal that lawlessness will not be tolerated within the Ghana Armed Forces. So thank you for the swift response. We'll monitor the other outcome and we'll follow particular outcomes in all the investigations that are going on, including EJRA. The safety and security of our citizens cannot be compromised for anything else. And Mr. Speaker, this Parliament, we have a duty as guardian of the fundamental rights and freedoms of Ghanaians, and we should not fail the people of Ghana when there are infractions to the law. So, Minister, nonetheless, commendable for coming to Parliament to brief us on the actions that you have taken. I believe that it's refreshing to hear some of the actions that are being taken, but you are reminded that you should let the military know their obligations under the 1992 Constitution does not include chasing for phones, missing or are missing. That is not part of their responsibility. And Mr. Speaker, we urge the minister to take appropriate steps across the country to demilitarize the civilian state. There are too many armed people with arms all over the country. That is not the way to go. The Minister for Home Affairs and the Minister for Interior must get the police proactive. I know that there are some discussions which will deal with some of the issues of equipping them, and you know we have assured you that to deal with those threats, we are in harmony with you in your thinking. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, Honorable Leader.
Let me also commend our good friend and the minister for a quick response to the situation. It's quite refreshing that coming from him authoritatively, putting the facts across for us to be able to be guided in our commentaries and also know for a fact what really transpired. If you look at the cost to the incident, on the face value of it, personally, I find it quite irresponsible, because the minister has said that young military men numbering 86 have descended on an area, a suburb of Wa, on a mere reason of loss of mobile phones. Totally irresponsible. But it's commendable that the minister has taken this bold step. Investigation has been conducted. The reputation of our military is not in doubt across the frontiers of this country. And many of us have had the opportunity to travel outside this country. Anytime the Ghana Army is being referenced, it's in a solid and positive note. And that reputation cannot be limited to the outside world. We in Ghana have to also have a feel of that good and professional reputation of our army. So it's in the right direction. The action taken by the minister is commendable. I also think that we need to go further, particularly healing the seemingly damaged relationship between civilians and the military. For what has happened, the psychological effect on the people of Wa and the suburb particularly, we need to do more than just investigating and then churning out deserving punishment. We must up that relationship between the civilians and the army. That, for me, is important. Regardless of the fact that the army, their role is defined, maintaining territorial integrity. They need the people of this country to survive and to do and execute their constitutional mandate. So I want to urge my good friend, the respected minister, to keep an eye on the situation. We don't want to wake up one day and hear that the matter has gotten out of hand. So keep an eagle eye on the situation, and also not just about transfer of people involved and also meting out punishment. We must keep a particular eye on this situation to avoid a reoccurrence of this. Again, we as civilians also need to show a bit of responsibility in our commentary. When such matters happen, this is, for me, this is one off. I stand for correction, but this is one off, particularly in the northern part of the country. This is the first time hearing such a thing happening. So we must be also responsible in our commentary. We must not get excessive in putting blame on the army. The Ghana Army is a very disciplined and an important institution of state. And so let's all be responsible in our commentary and condemn where we have to condemn and praise where we have to praise. Let me end by also showing solidarity with what the minority leader said, and making a call to our Minister for Interior to ensure that the number of arms in the system, we keep control over it, and ensure that we have a good grasp and a good control over this situation in our country. But that notwithstanding, I think that the minister needs to be commended, and also urge him to keep an eye on the situation to ensure that it does not or escalate. Speaker, thank you for the opportunity.
Very well. Thank you, honourable members. Thank you, honourable minister, for reporting on the statements after the actions of the Military High Command. Now, statement time. Honourable Minister for Interior will answer questions. First, urgent questions in the name of the honourable member for Kintampo North, Mr. Joseph Kwame Kuma. You may ask your question now.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity to ask the Minister for Interior when relief items will be distributed to victims of rainstorms that occurred in March and April 2021 in the following communities: Kintampo Township, Babatokuma, Kadelso, Sronase, Tahirikura, Jatokura, Porto, and Benkrum.
Yes, honourable minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the National Disaster Management Organization, NADMO, as at 7th July 2021, confirmed receipt of approval for release of funds by the Minister of Finance to procure relief items for distribution to victims of the rainstorm in the following communities. I'm mentioning what is relevant to this question. Kintampo Township, Babatokuma, Kadelso, Suronasi, Tokokura, Tatukura, Poto, and Benko. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, honourable member.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to plead with the Minister to find out what is the nature of the relief items that they are preparing to help my people with.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I don't have that information. I'll encourage the Honourable Member of Parliament to get in touch with NADMO, and if there are any challenges, I'll be prepared to facilitate this. I do not have the list of the relief items that are to be procured for them.
Yes, honourable member.
Mr. Speaker, due to the serious nature of the disaster, I want to plead with my honourable minister that not less than 300 houses, including market stores and schools, have been down completely. Mr. Speaker, I seek your leave to show 3 exhibits.
Honourable member, this is question time. So kindly ask a question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, the last question I have for my honourable minister is that the rains are highly in the system now. How rapidly will they be able to supply the relief items to alleviate the suffering of the victims?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the Honourable Member is right on point. Yes, we've drawn the attention of the Minister of Finance to the season and already we've suffered a number of disasters, and we are working with them as much as possible to make sure that we do meet the demands. And I would like to, Mr. Speaker, put on record the support for Parliament in these matters that we need to work together to deal with it. So, Mr. Speaker, we are going to work with finance and as much as possible try to cope with the disaster situations. Thank you.
Are you done? Very well. Yes, Honorable Nilante Vandam.
Right, Honorable Speaker. In as much as I sympathize with the minister, I plead that you use the authority we have in this House to implore the Minister of Finance to see NADMO for what it is meant for.
I thought you were doing a follow-up question.
I'm premising my question on something.
Kindly go to your question, please.
Because NADMO is for emergency disasters. As I'm talking to you, right, Honorable Speaker, if it will take more than a week, a month, for the Minister of Interior to get the money required to take care of the people who have been affected by disasters, I don't know what we expect them to do. So, Mr. Minister, I want to ask, don't you have an emergency resource from which you depend to make sure that you assuage the suffering of people who are affected by these disasters before you get remittances or this thing from the Minister of Finance? Is it always the case you have to follow the Minister of Finance and get money before you attend to such people?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, yes, we do have, as this House knows, that 3% of common fund is supposed to pay to that. But we do know that this House just recently approved the formula. So we would, as quickly as possible, see what we can get from there. No, that has been exhausted. That has been exhausted. The payments last year have been exhausted. You would realize that there have been several disasters since the beginning of the year, and NADMO was able to respond. And I believe that with the passing of the formula, it will enhance our capacity. But there's a fund that we all need to work together to see how we service that fund. But yes, I think we all need to support the position that we fund NADMO. I do know that the leadership of this House is working with the Ministry of Interior, among others, to see how we can variously support these efforts that have an impact on our security. And I would like to acknowledge the Honourable Member of Parliament for the support that he gave the fire service at the Makula fire incident. I think such encouragement is welcome. Thank you.
Yes.
I'm most grateful, Right Honourable Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I think once a question is asked on the floor of the House, it is for the interest of every member of Parliament. Mr. Speaker, in an answer to a supplementary question by the Honourable Member, the Minister referred the Honourable Member to NADMO. Mr. Speaker, will the Honourable Minister assure this House that he will get back to us on the nature of the relief items? Thank you.
Yes,
Mr. Speaker, I do not understand this last intervention. I gave an answer. And offered, together with the MP, to make sure that we followed up. That was what I said. I did not say that he should go. I said that I will encourage him and that I will be prepared to support him for us together. That is my offer. Mr. Speaker, NADMO has a board, NADMO had a system, and we are working to make sure that this thing is done.
Very well. Question number 5B. Madam Member for Upper Menya Krobo, Bismarck Tetenyako. You may ask your question now.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. Speaker, I rise to ask the Minister for the Interior what caused the closure of the Sekeswa police station and whether there are plans by the ministry to reopen the station to enhance security. Thank you.
Yes, Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, following a report on the state of the private rented facilities serving as police station accommodation for the police personnel at Sekeswa in the Upper Manya-Krobo municipality, the police administration conducted an inspection on the facilities to establish its suitability for human habitation on 22nd January 2020. Mr. Speaker, it was noted that the police station, which has served both the police personnel and inmates, had no toilet facilities. Besides, there were no kitchen, bathroom, toilet facilities at their places of residence. Also, the roofing was leaking badly and so needed renovation. The police administration, upon analysis of the findings of the inspection, considered the situation to be life-threatening and accordingly directed the Eastern Regional Police Command to temporarily close down the station for the facilities to be renovated, while they gave security cover to the area in the meantime. Mr. Speaker, as I speak, discussions are ongoing between the police administration and landlords to renovate the facilities. The police station will therefore be reopened after the needed renovation. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. Speaker, I want to ask the Minister when exactly the station was closed down officially.
Honorable Member.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I said on 22nd January 2020, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. The said accommodation that housed the police station is a property of the District Assembly. Speaker, I, together with the chief and people of Sekeswa, have undertaken to renovate the place because common fund is not yet available. Speaker, I want to ask the minister whether in 2 months' time, when we are able to renovate the facility to the standard of the police, the minister can assure us that he will repost the police back to Sekeswa police station.
Yes, Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to appreciate your support in advance. But immediately the renovation is carried out, there will be an inspection of the facilities and immediately they are found satisfactory, we would want the station to reopen. Thank you.
Speaker, my last supplementary question is to find out from the minister whose responsibility it is to provide a police station for the Ghana Police Service.
Sorry, did you understand the question? Can you repeat the question? I didn't get you quite.
Yes, Speaker, my question is, whose responsibility is to provide the station for the Ghana Police Service?
I thought you have undertaken to rehabilitate the building, so why are you asking for responsibility again? We will hold you to your assurance, so don't worry.
Speaker, the people of Upper Maya want to know this.
Well, you have a station. You said the assembly provided the building. It is dilapidated, but you have undertaken to rehabilitate it. So they know who provided the structure already, don't they?
Speaker, I'm asking this because we want the assurance from the minister. So if the other one is not allowed, can the minister assure us that immediately we finish the renovation, the personnel will come? Please allow.
The minister just gave you that assurance. So be assured, the record holds it. As soon as you finish, you inform the House. We will let the minister go, and he has already answered that question, and the record reflects that. Very well. We go to question number 55. Honorable Member for Shaman, Ernest Henry Nogbe. So, question.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. I rise to ask the Minister for Interior why DSP Samuel Azugu remains at post at the Ministry of National Security as head of the SWAT team, even after the Emil Shaw Commission recommended that his secondment to that ministry be revoked. Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker.
Azugu.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, to put my answer in context, this question should have appropriately been to the Minister for National Security. Having said that, my answer, which is within my remit, is that Deputy Superintendent of Police, Mr. Samuel Kojo Azugu, has since 27th May 2021 been recalled by the Inspector General of Police, IGP, from the Ministry of National Security and duly reassigned within the Ghana Police Service. So he's no more with National Security, he's now with the Ghana Police Service.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, once again. The government issued the white paper in September 2019, and in your answer, you said DSP Azugu has been recalled on the 27th May 2021, 2 years down the lane. Why has it taken the ministry too long to recall DSP Azugu? 2 years down the lane. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, your question was that he remains at post. And my answer is that he is not at the Ministry of this, but he is back with the Ghana Police Service. Period. Besides, let me emphasize that by Article 202 of the Constitution, operational matters are the remit of the IGP, not the Minister.
He's so angry, Mr. Speaker.
It's a supplementary question. Answer the supplementary question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want the minister to tell me
I see you are tired.
who DSP Samuel Azugu is. I am also West Wagon. You have Samuel Azugu. Caleb Kuda, Samuel Azugu.
Yes.
Asakandra, Samuel Azugu. Who is this Samuel Azugu?
Can you listen to me? Honorable Minister, hold on. Kindly ask that as a regular question, so he will answer. It does not come out of this answer at all. It does not. Honorable Minister, I've disallowed the question. You can ask another one. Are you done, Honorable Nogbe?
Yeah, Honorable Speaker,
You have 3 follow-up questions.
I'll yield to my colleagues.
You don't have the right to yield to anybody. Yes. Yes, you may ask.
Thank you very much, Right Honorable Speaker. Mr. Speaker, will the Minister be kind to tell the House whether Azugu's reassignment in May 2021 was in relation to the action taken after the City FM scenario, or it was in relation to the Commission's directive? Will the Minister be able to clarify that for us? Was the recall in May 2021 as a result of the debacle involving Caleb Kuda at City FM, or as a result of the Commission's directive? Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm not in a position to answer that question.
Honorable Minister,
Mr. Speaker,
are you aware of that?
I'm not aware of which. Mr. Speaker, the question was alleging that the Azugu was still at National Security. That's the information I have, that he's not there. Period. Mr. Speaker, if you want any other information, I do not have that on the basis of this question.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, in the Minister's answer, he says that Inspector General of Police, whatever it's called, from the Ministry of National Security and duly reassigned within the Ghana Police Service. Can the Minister be kind to let us know which of the units within the Ghana Police Service DSP has been reassigned to? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Minister, do you have that information?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I don't have that information now.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I would like to know from the Honorable Minister whether Azugu has been subjected to any disciplinary action.
Mr. Speaker, it's not part of this question, and I'm not aware.
Yes.
Mr. Speaker,
We all saw videos of men in uniform molest even a colleague in this house, which is, and Mr. The policeman called Azubu was alleged to have been in charge of those individuals. Mr. Speaker, it is just fair that our colleague, the minister, should apprise the House the unit at which the policeman Azubu is today, so that we can all monitor whether he's going to be the same Azubu who have been molesting people.
Ask the question.
So my question is, Mr. Speaker, I'm asking again. You are the Minister of Interior.
Yes.
Do you know the unit at which Azubu is?
And you must answer.
Because the Inspector General of Police has no audience in this house. You are the minister. Tell us which the unit in which he is.
Yes, Honorable Leader.
My God. Mr. Speaker, this house is guided by its own rules. Mr. Speaker, this house is guided by its own rules. And first, the member in asking the question starts with an argument, and his attention must be drawn to Order 68.5. The Speaker, you don't begin to ask questions, foundations, or premise on your own arguments. And you are making allegations. It's alleged. Mr. Speaker, that is rather argumentative. Second, Mr. Speaker, our rules are also very clear that 69 provides, as soon as the question is answered in the House, any member beginning with the member who has a question may, without notice, ask a supplementary question for the further elucidation of any matter of fact, not of allegations. Can I finish? Mr. Speaker, any matter of fact regarding which the answer has been given, but a supplementary question must not be used to introduce matter not included in the original question. As we are on these two legs, I pray you to rule that argumentative question out of order.
Yes.
I was going to rule you out anyway. The questions are to emanate from the answer. I have the follow-up questions appear to be questions standing alone, and I was pointing out to people, ask your own question. So your question is disallowed. I'll move on to question number 56. Those who are interested in where Azugu is, kindly file your question. The minister will answer. Question number 56. Honorable Member for Sherman, kindly ask your question.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. I rise to ask, away from Azugu to the Minister for Interior, the relevance of the Esukuma checkpoint on the Akosovo to Ho Road. Thank you.
Yes, Honorable Minister for Interior.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the Asikuma checkpoint, established since 2005, has been strategically located at a convergent point to counter-profile and examine documents of foreigners who may have entered the country illegally through border areas such as Nyevi, Hunota, Shia, Leklebi, Dafo, Willie, and Begame, excuse my Savannah tongue, Menuso, and beyond. 138 ECOWAS nationals have been intercepted and arrested on the Asikuma checkpoint since the closure of our land borders. Mr. Speaker, the Asikuma checkpoint continues to play a key role in the reduction of illegal entry of persons and goods into the country, hence the need for its maintenance. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Right Honourable Speaker. Is the Minister aware that communities and natives from those areas, like Sanga, Peki, Dededo, and its environs, are also constantly harassed to check their passport before they proceed with their journey? Is the Minister aware of that? That natives, let me say Ghanaians, from those areas, Peki, Sanga, Dededo, whole areas, are also subjected to thorough scrutiny, demanding for their passports before they proceed with their journeys. Thank you very much.
Mr. Speaker, I know that at checkpoints, documents are checked. But if Ghanaians are being asked at that checkpoint to produce passports, it will be a procedure that not only will us, but that I would like to point out to the officials that it is not a requirement for Ghanaians to produce the passports at that point. So I'll take this up with the Ghana Immigration Service, and that this is an allegation, and I really want to get it thoroughly dealt with, and that nothing should be done to impede the movement of Ghanaians within the country. Thank you.
Thank you, Right Honourable Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the towns that the Honourable Minister mentioned, Nive, Honuta, Shia, Leklebi, Darfur, Vli, Apegam, and Menusu, all these areas are located at the border. Asikuma is in the town, the heart of town. How can you juxtapose, or how can you defend the establishment of that checkpoint at that middle point of town, where the reasons for the location of the checkpoint is that people from Honuta areas are coming into there? These are all communities at the border towns. Your question. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Minister, how can you juxtapose?
No, not juxtapose, justify.
How can you justify the location of that checkpoint at Asikuma, which is over kilometers away from those towns you've mentioned, the border? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I have justified already by giving you evidence that over 130 foreigners were nabbed at that checkpoint. What happens is that along our borders we have a lot of unapproved routes, and therefore we set up these strategic points even within the country. And I can assure you that in the Oti and Volta regions, we had foreigners who had come in there and in fact posed the challenge of the early COVID cases that we had in those places. We're not gotten at the border, but these are strategic checkpoints. And this checkpoint has existed since 2005. In spite of the change of governments, I believe that it was found strategically right, as I do find it same today. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Is the Minister aware that people can transport themselves from Honuta, Nive, Shia, Leklebi without necessarily passing through Asikuma to Accra?
Are you aware?
Are you aware?
Just like Azugu.
So you're not.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. You are giving me the reason why we should establish even more checkpoints beyond the point that you have spoken about.
Okay, Kofi Adams. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Mr. Minister, considering your admission in the main answer that Ghanaians must have unhindered movement, they should move freely, and looking at the position of this checkpoint and the fact that everybody passing in commercial vehicles are subjected to checks. If you are not holding a Ghana card or you didn't carry your card immediately, you are subjected to unnecessary delays. Are you considering strengthening the checkpoints at the border points rather than maintaining that point there to continue to harass persons who should freely move?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the issue of alleged harassment of Ghanaians I have undertaken to take up with the Immigration Service. But having said that, the importance and the strategic value of that checkpoint is not undermined. Indeed, the first 10 COVID-19 cases that we detected in Tamale, in a hotel in Tamale, had gone down through Aflao, beat all the checkpoints until he got there. So we should try and understand the need for us to be vigilant. But having said that, it is important for us to emphasize to the security agencies that they should not harass Ghanaians. That I'm prepared to do. But we are not going to lower our guard until we think it is safe to do so.
Mr. Speaker, thank you for the opportunity. Mr. Speaker, between Adomi Bridge and the Skuma barrier in question, there are 6 other barriers. There's a barrier at the Adomi Bridge itself. There's a military barrier, in fact, 2 military barriers at Juapong. There's a police barrier at Juapong. So 3. There's another police barrier at Frankedria. There's another police barrier at the outskirts of Esikuma before you enter Esikuma town. The Skuma barrier, Mr. Speaker, consists of 3 other barriers. There's a police barrier, there's a customs barrier, then there is an immigration barrier. All operating from almost the same location. And the point is that the justification for the siting of this barrier is now unfounded. Because, Mr. Speaker, between the Leclerc
now you're making an argument. Can they
Mr.
ask
Speaker,
your question?
may I'm just laying a foundation for my question. Between Leclerc and the Skuma barrier, there are 8 other barriers. So the siting of the Skuma barrier in question, Skuma is the entry point to my constituency, and this is a very sensitive matter. The people are so harassed that it's no longer a laughing matter. Because you go through a police barrier, they ask you to go through the customs barrier. Then they also ask you to go through the immigration barrier. So, Mr. Speaker, the question is, the supposed justification for the siting of the Skuma barrier, Mr. Speaker, with all due respect, it has no basis. So will you consider reviewing the number of other barriers which is that are dotted between the Adomi Bridge and the Skuma barrier?
Yes. Will you consider reducing the number of...
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the honorable member has alluded to several barriers that are not under my remit. What I am saying is that the Esikuma barrier is justified, will be maintained, but the service personnel will be warned to make sure the Ghanaians are not harassed. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to ask the Minister. My constituency is a border constituency, and there are many porous borders, like he said. The question was, is the Sekuma barrier still relevant? In Agotume, where my constituency is, Agotume, you mentioned Afegame. Afegame is part of the entry points. Won't you consider moving the point in Asekuma to beef up the borders, the immigration points on the borders, so that they can help police the porousness of the borders? Because where they are is creating a problem. Mr. Speaker, most Ghanaians don't carry passports, ID cards when they are traveling. And people from Afegame get there, and when they mention they are from Afegame, they are harassed. So why don't you move them to go and help those in Afegame?
I think that if you join together and brought a statement discussing this matter, we will be able to discuss them widely. But now when you ask a question, you're confined within the narrow limits of the questions and the answer. So kindly let's deal with a Sekuma barrier, which the question relates to, please. If you have a question, because your question did not come out.
My question is,
must relate to a Sekuma barrier, please.
Yes. My question is, would the minister consider closing down the Sekuma barrier and moving the immigration officers to help their colleagues on the borders, since the borders are porous, like he said?
Yes, Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, there is a program to address the porous nature of our borders. It's independent of other checkpoints within the country. And Mr. Speaker, let me emphasize this. We are faced with a threat of jihadists. And indeed, you would soon realize that there will be some barriers that will spring up from time to time. Asikuma barrier's strategic importance is still very, very, very critical to our security, and we shall maintain that whilst insisting that Ghanaians be treated with the respect that they deserve.
Yes, Kwame.
Right, Honourable Speaker, I hear the Minister assuring the House that he would ensure that the personnel treat Ghanaians in a humane way. That is very assuring. Humane way. Your officers treat Ghanaians using going through humane. I'm saying that is very assuring. But is the Minister aware that apart from a tent which his men operate from, the rest of Ghanaians have to disembark in the rain and in the sun to be able to be searched? Would the Minister consider improving the infrastructure at that checkpoint so that people who are being searched or people who are going through the checkpoint are taken through a more humane situation than it is now? Because currently you see a pregnant woman disembarking in the rain and your own men are just living in a tent, but you said the place is very important. So how do you have an important checkpoint in a tent? Would you consider improving that situation, Mr. Speaker, Minister?
Mr. Speaker, I take the concerns expressed by the Honourable Member of Parliament very seriously. Just as I said, Ghanaians should not be harassed. I would ask that the conditions there be improved, and that except that they think it is necessary to empty the vehicle for a thorough search as much as possible, they could conduct the searches without letting them disembark. But this It's a point, Mr. Speaker, that I intend to take up seriously to ensure that our people are well treated and treated humanely.
This is Volta insulting. You are far away north. Yes. Yes, I said Volta insulting. He is far away in the north. That's why. Yes, go.
Thank you very much. Mr. Speaker, actually, Asikuma is in my constituency. And I know that the personnel at that barrier are all from the Volta region. But Asikuma is in a Sojaman and is in the eastern region. So why is that? Why is that command under the Volta region, whereas geographically it is located in the eastern region? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The spheres of command do not necessarily conform to the political boundaries of the districts and municipalities and what have you. It is normally connected to where they think that strategically would assist them do a better job. So, Mr. Speaker, you have several situations where you find one part of the region is put under another part for convenience of administering the job. So please understand. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to find out from the Honorable Minister, how does he feel that a citizen of this country is subjected to prove his citizenship, to be able to move around?
You're out of order.
Oh.
This is related to a Sikuma barrier. If you have that question, file it yourself.
Mr. Speaker, that is what
Second Deputy Speaker to take the chair.
National importance. Listen.
Honorable, question number 57. South Dai, you may ask your question now.
Yes, honorable member. Mr. Speaker, I arise to ask the Minister for the Interior the circumstances under which fire service officers in Achim Bregor traveled in a taxi with extinguishers to put out fire. Thank you.
Yes, honorable minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the fire service officers went to the fire scene in a taxi cab with fire extinguishers to put out fire, because at the time of the incident, the station's water tender number FS 706 was temporarily out of commission. The water tender was being worked on by the Eastern Region Maintenance Team as a result of a clutch failure. On Thursday, 27th May 2021, at 10:25 hours, a distress call was received at the Begro fire station reporting an outbreak of fire at Bethlehem, a suburb of Achim Begro, involving a single-room apartment. At 10:29 hours, a 7-member crew under the command of ADO-2 Stephen Ajay was dispatched to the fire scene in a taxi cab with registration number ER 802-20, since the station's water tender was temporarily out of commission. Mr. Speaker, the crew got to the scene at 10:33 hours and used 4 6-kilo dry chemical powder fire extinguishers and buckets of water from members in the community to douse the fire and to prevent it from further spreading to adjoining buildings. Meanwhile, the Bonsu fire station was called in as a stopgap measure, but was asked to return when the crew got to the scene and realized the fire had been brought under control by the people in the community at 10:41 hours. Mr. Speaker, it is clear that the fire service officers were really very innovative and took the step. But I can assure you that the tanker has been repaired and returned to station. Mr. Speaker, that is the answer.
Yes, honourable member, any supplementary question?
Mr. Speaker, thank you. Mr. Speaker, is the minister aware that prior to the incident in question, the fire tender that had been out of commission had been sold for about 2 weeks, and that the problem was not simply a mechanical one of clutch, but it was much more?
So what was the question?
Mr. Speaker, the question is that the fire tender had long been out of commission, and they had been calling for assistance, and it was not forthcoming from region. And so, what steps had been taken to ensure that the problem of the station was not one of mechanical, but as a result of water and other things?
Anyway, Mr. Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The statements by the Honourable Member of Parliament are very serious statements. The information I have is what I've given, and I'll be prepared to have those allegations investigated and whoever is responsible dealt with. So I would like to have further information from my learned friend on this matter so that we pursue. Thank you, Mrs.
Yes, honourable member.
Mr. Speaker, I will defer to.
So it means you finish with your supplementary questions. Yes, honourable member for Boribambos.
Thank you. Mr. Speaker, thank you. Mr. Speaker, I want to find out from the minister whether we have trained mechanics as part of the officers at the district levels who can attend to such basic problems instead of waiting to get external mechanics to come and do such simple things for us. Thank you.
Yes, honourable minister.
Mr. Speaker, I am aware that they have some mechanics. From the answer that I got from the service, it seems to me that those mechanics are in the region. And certainly, I find nothing wrong with asking them to get more of those. But let me say that the leadership of this House is working with us the last time we went, and we're expecting some more fire tenders this year to supplement, and also have an arrangement to maintain those that we have. And that is why I would take to find out how many mechanics are there, and also take seriously the allegations that the other member of Parliament made. Thank you.
Yes, honourable member for Daku.
Right, Honourable Speaker. The minister said, and I quote, at 10:29 hours, a 7-member crew under the command of Adroy Stephen Ajay was dispatched to the scene in a taxi cab. Mr. Speaker, you are admitting to the House that 7 people were sitting in a taxi with fire extinguishers. Are your men aware that that is overloading the vehicle? Are you comfortable with 7 of your men sitting in a taxi that should carry 5 passengers, including the driver? Are you comfortable with that?
Yes, Honorable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I'm sure my honorable member of parliament, who is also a lawyer, has not even spoken on the capacity. Oh, you are not? Oh, I think it's one of those, Mr. Speaker. They went in a taxi cab. You don't know the capacity, the passenger capacity. Why are you assuming that there was a breach? They went there comfortably, as far as I'm concerned, and did a good job. And the taxi was big enough to carry them.
Yes, Honorable Member.
Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, insofar as I know, there is no taxi cab in this country that can take more than 5. No taxi cab. So can the minister tell us the type of vehicle that was able to take the 7 member?
Yes, Honorable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, there are station wagons that are taxis. Mr. Speaker, let us look at this. There is an emergency. There is a fire. And they had no means. As far as I'm concerned, this is an answer to the question that was asked about a taxi. Yes, there was a taxi that was asked. And when you saw the taxi in the video, you saw them aligned. Were they 7? Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, I think that, yes, we need to take this seriously. I would commission on what really, how they really moved in it. But in any case, we should right now praise them for their show of patriotism and innovation. Thank you.
Yes, Honorable Member for Kita. Is it Kita?
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I would like to inquire from the Minister. When those fire tenders, do they have other equipment like accessories attached to them, as well as do they have regional workshop where they maintain them? Regional workshops. Do you have regional workshop, as well as when the tenders are coming, do you have other accessories attached to it, spare parts to it?
Yes, Honorable Minister. And I guess this will be the last answer.
Mr. Speaker, I think my fellow members of parliament have missed me and they don't want to let me go. Mr. Speaker, yes, we have arrangements for maintenance in the regions. However, we're working towards actually also working on getting on spares. So over the years, we've had different types of tenders that have been brought into the country. And one of the challenges we have is actually how to stock space. It's a challenge that we are working on. So this order that we are working on with the support of leadership of parliament, we're going to insist that they come with support, spare parts and others that would enable us be able to fix them. But I must admit that the maintenance, remains a challenge, especially when the tenders are used over several years, whatever. But it's something that we are alive to, and we would assist fire service to do its best to meet our expectations.
Okay, final supplementary question. Member from Asujamai.
Yes, Mr. Speaker. I'm grateful. Mr. Speaker, obviously, fire tenders are machines and they may break down every now and then. Do you have protocols in place such that if a particular fire tender for a station is out of commission, other fire tenders will be available to serve the area in question, so that we don't have this incident where 7 people have to go with a taxi to a fire situation?
Yes, Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. That is the arrangement I normally have. And in the answer you heard, the Bonsu fire that came to give a backup. But because of the innovative approach that the officers applied, by the time the tender came, the fire was out. So sometimes the distances between the backup tender and the scene is normally the problem. But yes, we have backups that they call to come and support. And that is the situation that we have. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We move to question number 58. That stands in the name of Honorable Member for Adaku, Honorable Kwame Galvin Abuja.
Right, Honorable Speaker, thank you for the opportunity. Just to make a declaration, I am not a lawyer. I know my senior colleague said it in a joke, but for the records, I am not a lawyer, I'm an architect. Mr. Speaker, I write to us, the Minister for Interior, the outcome so far of investigations into attacks by a group called Western Togoland Secessionists in the Volta region in October 2020.
Yes, Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, investigations were initiated on the matter on 25th September 2020. A number of arrests have since been made, and duplicate case dockets in respect to the case have been forwarded to the Attorney General for study and advice. Meanwhile, all suspects have been put before court and remanded into lawful custody. However, due to the COVID-19 pandemic, the presiding magistrate has ordered the police not to bring the suspects to court, but allow their lawyers to represent them instead on each adjourned date. Thank you, Mrs.
Yes, Honorable Member.
Mr. Speaker, there's a news item yesterday on Joy that suggests that 11 of the suspects have been discharged due to lack of enough evidence to continue the case relating to the 11. Can the minister tell us how many more are in custody?
Yes, Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. That is not my remit. I've heard that they discharged them, but that is under the remit of the Attorney General. The investigations end when they are charged and the Attorney General supervises this. What I can assure you is that no one would be remanded or continue to be held when there is no evidence found against them. And we're going to make sure that our rights are respected in the meantime. Thank you.
Yes, Honorable Member.
Right, Mr. Speaker. Thank you very much. Mr. Speaker, those of us who live in Eastern and Volta region can see that the security agencies are maintaining the same level of operation in the region, some of which my colleagues talked about. Is there further indication that this group or these people are still active in the operation, such warranting the level of scrutiny we go through when we are going to Eastern or Volta region?
Yes, Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the general security situation all over the country has been one of, an alert, not just related to one particular group, but because of the situation in our neighboring countries, we're holding ourselves in readiness. Mr. Speaker, I'm happy that my honorable member has realized that at a certain time we were suspected of having the arrangement because of registration or election. No, it is to maintain the general security, and we shall continue to do that. Thank you.
Mr. Speaker, I wish my colleague...
Yes,
I wish he didn't say that, because actually, I thought it was about the registration, the election. So I wish he didn't say that one. Because I don't believe they were there because of any secessionist activities. Mr. Speaker, my final question is this. When does the minister foresee the natural process that will lead to actual prosecution and then an action by the court of this, the individuals who are still in custody? Can you predict? Can you tell the House approximately when you think this process would end with somebody jailed or all of them being released out of regarding this case?
Yes, Honorable Minister.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. That is prosecution under the Office of the Attorney General, and all the persons, suspect and key persons, are represented by competent lawyers, and I believe the due process will determine what happens moving forward.
Yes, Honorable Member for...
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would like to ask the Minister for Interior what the situation is now and what the security are supposed to be doing. Because recently, Mr. Speaker, on my way to my farm, I had cutlasses in my car. The security stopped, searched my car, and took all the cutlasses away from me. I want to know what the situation is now and why they still, continue to conduct, themselves the way they are doing, in my constituency. The security that was deployed when we had the issue with the secessionist group. Or what?
Mr. Speaker, a cutlass is an offensive weapon, and I would want to encourage the Honourable Parliament. Please, I want to encourage him that should it be, I don't know even the location of what you are talking about, but I want to be sure that you are not carrying it for self-protection. Mr. Speaker, these are evolving situations, and sometimes the police and security react to situations depending on the intelligence that they have. But for me, I would say that if it's for farming, I believe that Mr. Speaker, it didn't take more than one cutlass to behead the last driver of the car in Ashanti region that we arrested 2 days ago. So sometimes when they see these weapons or tools, engage them and explain, I'm sure we would have a better understanding of each other.
Yes, Deputy Majority Leader.
Honorable Minister, from your investigations, would you say that the intention of these suspects was to destabilize this country? From your investigations, would you?
Yes, Honorable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, yes, the allegation is that they are to destabilize the country. And what we are doing, we are going to the due process of investigating and putting them in court. And we believe that will bring a different remit. But it's based on our belief that they were going to destabilize.
Honorable Minority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, mine will be more to guide the minister just for future action. And it relates to the matter raised by the Honorable Dapameko and subsequently supported by the Honorable Kwame Abuja.
Honorable Leader, is it a question?
Yes, Mr. Speaker. Whether the minister will take steps, to improve policing at the borders. And Mr. Speaker, I wanted to premise it with some humor. A delegation, you are saying, you know why I came to when I came to Kumasi for the funeral, I didn't enter with pomp and pageantry. Normally, I should be accompanied with local gunshots in front of me as a Dagomba Royal. But Mr. Speaker, I didn't do so because I sent a delegation of civilians to go and commiserate with the Honorable Kwame Dapameko. local musketeers to make a funeral more exciting. And I come from that part of the north with you. You know the way we enter funerals. We have our own way of announcing our arrival. I would have done so for you. May our sister rest in perfect peace. I would have arrived at the police depot. Leader, Mr. Speaker, just permit me so that Minister will be guided with pomp and pageantry, which is cultural and traditional, to commiserate with you. But Mr. Speaker, I hesitated. And I hesitated because the police in the Volta region, when we sent local people to commiserate, to perform at the funeral of the late chairman of the Honorable Dapo, they were arrested and detained for 3 days. I had to be running to Cantonment Police Station to ask for bail for ordinary citizens who were just attending a funeral, but were treated as, Mr. Speaker, persons who were in arms to destabilize Ghana. So, Mr. Speaker, my question is, will the minister endeavor to get the police to distinguish between imagined threats, real threats, and funeral performing local? So, leader, now you understand why I was quiet. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I've suffered what the minority leader suffered when I was back in my law office after the election 2012. I was going to a funeral and they fired a shotgun and the person was arrested. Yes, I would draw their attention, but we can always be helped by just giving notice to the police. If the police know that there's a delegation of the minority leader coming to attend a funeral, I believe that it will facilitate the movement. And that is precisely the point that we want to talk about. When we know the minority leader will not be carrying a group of bandits, but when we don't have that background, there is that thing. It's unfortunate, but we'll know that moving forward, we see how we can do it. We need to give notice and we will let you attend your funerals in grand style. Thank you.
Yes. Honorable members, we move to question number 119. Stands the name of the member from Jomoro, Ms. Dorcas Toffee. Madam, you may ask your question.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker, for the opportunity. I rise to ask the Minister for Interior whether government has conducted a social impact assessment on citizens within Ghana's border towns since the closure of Ghana's land borders, and what are the effects on citizens? Thank you.
Yes, Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the closure of our land borders has had some impact on movement of persons, but not goods. We haven't banned, let me explain, we haven't banned the movement of goods. The borders remain open for trading through imports and exports of goods. Accordingly, haulage trucks are permitted through the closed borders. The social impact has not been conducted by the Minister of Interior. No, it has not been done. Mr. Speaker, should there be such an impact assessment be necessary, I believe that it will be multi-sectoral. We would need other ministries to come in with that capacity. For us, we are looking at the security aspect. But the point I need to make, which I think we should explore, is that we have not banned the movement of goods. What we have banned is the movement of persons. And so there's another question where I give the number, thousands of trucks that do pass. So please be informed. And so we can facilitate that sort of trade by just organizing our people and assisting them to be able to. So we haven't banned the movement of goods at all, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, Honorable Member, any supplementary question?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, hold on, sorry. Mr. Speaker, the Minister admits that there has been some impact assessment, there has been some impact on those living along the borders. Can the Minister further explain the nature of the impact recorded? Sorry. Thank you.
Yes, Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My answer is there has been an impact, some impact on the movement of persons. The movement of persons. There has been an impact. So if you want to go across the border, you can write to the ministry in respect of persons. But luggage and goods, no. So the impact with the closure is movement of persons because they move the COVID virus, but not the goods. So what I mean is that there's an impact, but it's more on persons than goods. And even with the persons, you are a member of parliament. If there's a need for people to move specially, and you write to us, we'll give you clearance and assist you. Thank you.
Madam Questioner, are you okay? Okay. Then, Honorable Member for Boko Central.
Thank you very much, Right Honorable Speaker. The Minister, in his answer, indicated that the ban is in respect of the movement of goods, of persons. So haulage trucks cross the borders. Mr. Speaker, the Minister is aware that it is the human beings who cross to buy the goods that are loaded in the haulage trucks that cross the border. If those human beings are unable to cross to buy the goods, how are the goods going to originate and cross the borders into Ghana? And she's saying that for everybody who is seeking to cross and is a trader, the member of parliament should write to the ministry for authorization.
Yes, Honorable Member, Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the honorable member is more digitally informed than I am. And we do know that in the movement of goods, mostly the arrangements are not done by persons being always present. However, even the haulage trucks are allowed a reasonable number of persons. So when a haulage truck comes, and you know what a haulage, if there are 3-4 people there, they are allowed to go. What we do not want is allowing buses to move persons. So those vehicles move with some people. Reasonable number 5, we consider it reasonable. Owner of goods going, we don't have a problem with that. What we want to check is the uncontrolled movement of persons generally across. So that is the matter. So there's sufficient. Let me tell you that I come from a border area myself. My village is near Hamley. And recently we've had to come in when the movement of maize, and we're able to explain that. So I want us as members of parliament to see how we can inform our people, because most of them do not know the ban doesn't affect goods. That's the heart of the matter. Thank you.
Yes, I'm inclined to invite members who have bought. So, Honorable Member for Southton and
no.
South.
Ketu South.
Ketu South. Good.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity to contribute to this question that has been filed by the Honorable Member this afternoon. The response from the Honorable Minister suggests to me, and I just want clarification, sir, if you may, that the ban is on ordinary people who cross the borders or use the borders for economic activities or for economic reasons. I ask this because only last week I myself flew into Togo. Even though I come from Aflawu, I didn't use the border. The aircraft, Askai, was full. We arrived at the airport, the buses that picked us were full. So it means that the people who are up the economic ladder can move. The ordinary people whose daily lives depend on the border are the ones who are burned as it is.
Honorable member, the question, please.
I would like the Honorable Minister to explain further for my edification if it is indeed the case that the ordinary people of this country are banned from using the border, but those up the ladder are using the aircraft to do the same business. I thank you.
Yes, Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, with the greatest respect, even diplomats who want to cross the border would write to Interior to get a clearance. The application is across board. It is not restricted to lower people. So right now, even people going to La Côte d'Ivoire and the rest of them, you should know the neighbors have also closed their borders. We have this correspondence to facilitate them to go. That is why I was encouraging members of parliament that because maybe the honour president does not know that there are these facilities, we should inform them. And then if you get them to write to the ministry, we would facilitate based on what the situation is. But I want to assure that it applies to all levels. Even when international developments come and they are going, we need to give them authority to go. Thank you, Mr.
Honorable Akando, do you have some
Thank
of
you,
your
Mr.
communities
Speaker.
along?
Mr. Speaker, if
I'm
people
asking your
fly-
question, Honorable Akando. Do you have communities along the
Right,
border?
Do you have
Do you have communities?
Mr. Speaker, I share boundary with La Côte d'Ivoire.
Okay.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, when people fly into this country through Kotoka International Airport, before they land, they do PCR tests from their country of origin. At the point of entry, they do antigen tests. Mr. Speaker, why is it that we don't have any testing regime at the borders for the drivers who are driving the cargoes across?
And those who are giving.
Honorable member, come out with your question again.
Mr. Speaker, the minister has indicated that the ban is on the movement of people and not cargoes. And you agree with me that human beings drive the cargoes. Mr. Speaker, at the point of entry, especially at Kotoka, there's a testing regime, irrespective of the test you do in your country of origin. Mr. Speaker, I am asking that why is it that there is no testing regime at our borders, land borders?
Okay. Yes, Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My ministry is not responsible for tests. This is the Minister of Health.
Yes, Honorable Telabi.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Minister, is the minister aware? Is the minister aware there are, aside those who, cut goods, there are those who, before the border's closure, would have to cross the border, go sell. They don't have their own goods, but they go and sell, and that is their only source of living. They go to assist, and then in the evening they return to Ghana with some, money for the families. Is he aware?
Minister, are you aware? Then you've answered.
Mr. Speaker, that if he gets
Honorable member, you've exhausted your question, please. I'll move to question number 120. That stands the name of member for Jomoro, Docas Tofi.
Thank you,
Honorable,
Mr. Speaker.
question.
I rise to ask the Minister for Interior whether government is putting in place urgent, appropriate measures towards the reopening of Ghana's land borders with Togo, Cote d'Ivoire, and Burkina Faso to enable citizens living in the border towns undertake their businesses and economic activities without let or hindrance. Thank you.
Yes, Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the government will consider the option of opening the land borders depending on the security situation in the sub-region and advice from the COVID-19 experts in view of the third wave of COVID-19 in neighboring countries. It is, however, important to note that Ghana's neighboring countries have all closed their land borders. It would therefore be better for Ghana to open its borders in consultation with neighboring countries in the sub-region. Mr. Speaker, it should be put on record that the borders are, however, open for import and export of goods. As of 23 June 2021, 144,719 trucks crossed our land borders. Thank you, Mrs.
Yes. Honorable Member, any supplementary question?
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would like to ask the Minister that beyond COVID, are there other security implications for opening the borders at this time?
Yes, Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, our sub-region is in serious turmoil. Indeed, Burkina Faso is about over 75% of Burkina Faso is not under the full control of the security agencies of that country. And it affects other countries as well. Some of them, because of some diplomatic relations, we don't want to talk, but the security situation is not stable. Yes, we have to thank all of us in this house and beyond, our citizens who are working to ensure that Ghana remains a peaceful country. You would hear about a civilian in the Hameli Church, Catholic Church, pointing us, and it happens all across the country that our people are supporting. So when we are rated as number 2 in Africa, it's an accolade for the whole country that all our citizens have worked together for us to achieve that. So, Mr. Speaker, there are security concerns, some of which I cannot say publicly, but I can assure you that this government is committed to opening the borders. Before the president came in, our borders were open for 12 hours. We opened it for 24 hours because we know what the benefits are. So we look forward to opening the borders as soon as those two factors are under control. Thank you. Security and COVID-19.
Yes. So we move to. Have you exhausted your? Okay.
I have one more.
Okay.
I would like to ask the Minister, has there been any consultations so far in preparation towards reopening of the borders in due course? Thank you.
Yes, Minister. Honorable Member, take the question again, please.
Yes, that's a supplementary question.
You ain't listening.
Has there been any consultations so far in preparation towards reopening of the borders in due course?
Yes, Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, all the ECOWAS meetings that have taken place, including the last one that took place in Ghana, the heads of state in the sub-region are consulting continually, seeing how they can work together to stabilize the system for return to normalcy. Yes, of course, we would consult. You'll be surprised. I'm also from a border town. The West Central MP will tell you. We consult continuously, and we are hoping that things will change quickly, and as soon as they do, we shall together revert to normal. Thank you.
Yes, honourable member for Boko Central.
Honourable Minister, we are well on record that the official reason for the closure of the borders is to deal with the COVID pandemic. But you have added a second condition under which the borders will be open if the security issues in the sub-region improve. Are you adding that as the reason why the borders are closed?
Yes, Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, our borders are closed. Two reasons. One is security. One is security. Just recently, even the occurrences in La Côte d'Ivoire, even to get refugees back there, we've had to engage. So security has been one of them. That is why security has been one of them. Well, my answer is security and COVID-19. If you want a motion to vary that, you may do so.
Yes, honourable member for Wa Central.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the Honourable Minister in this answer talked about security. But in his response to the question, in 120, in response to the question one, answer 120, your answer 120. The answer to this question that you are answering, yeah, you said that it would therefore be better for Ghana to open its borders in consultation with neighboring countries in the sub-region. Is it a policy expectation that you think that it will be better to open the borders, or you simply, because if there's a security challenge and it is about Ghana, I don't see how this statement could be made.
Yes, Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, my answer to 120 is clear. And if I may repeat, the government will consider opening of the land borders depending on the security situation in the sub-region and the advice from the COVID-19 experts. Now, the neighboring countries have also closed their borders based on the common security situation, which is being reviewed always. So we are saying that we need to review it together, and that even when we want to achieve, when we come to the conclusion that we should open our borders, we will not achieve anything for our country if we don't convince our neighbors to do the same. Otherwise, we say, go to La Côte d'Ivoire, you pass our border, they'll stop you. Go to Togo, you go to their border, they'll stop you. So we need to do so together. That is what I talk about collaboration. But there are two reasons that I've given.
Yes, we take the last question from the same honourable member for Jomoro. Question number 21. Honourable member, you take.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. May I ask, Honourable Minister for Interior, whether government is considering providing support in the form of social interventions for citizens in Ghana's border towns since the borders remain closed. Thank you.
Yes, Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, government provided social intervention support to all citizens by way of provision of free water and electricity, among others, for a period in 2020-2021, and all citizens, including those in border towns, benefited. Mr. Speaker, all social interventions for citizens during the COVID-19 pandemic were approved by this House. Beyond that, I do not know of any other social interventions. So those social events that were approved by this House are the applicable ones. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would like to ask the Honorable Minister. We know most of the social interventions approved as part of the COVID pandemic has since elapsed. Will the ministry consider any special packages for people along the borders since they are special cases? Thank you.
Yes, Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'm very interested in the group that you are talking about. But it's also multi-sectoral. It's finance, trade, other ministries need to come in to deal with that. So our MPB, SSI, and all those institutions are there to help. Mr. Speaker, I think that I've been missed. I think I should come in more regularly to this house to save myself from long spells. So thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable, that's the last supplementary question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The government, through a private sector operator, has been collecting monies as part of COVID tests at the airport. Can the minister consider using part of this to support people along border towns? Thank you.
Yes, Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Honorable MP really wants me to do a lot. I wish I could. At the airport, there are two ministries that are there. We keep the security. Health does the testing. Finance collects the taxes. And they would then know how to apply it. I shall remember to tell them that they need to apply it and they shouldn't forget border towns. Thank you.
Honorable members, we have brought question time to a close. Honorable Minister, we thank you so much for attending upon the House to answer 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 separate questions. We are very grateful to you. You are discharged, Honorable Minister. Yes, Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, yesterday we agreed to stand down a motion to have it relisted for today. And the motion is listed as item number 17. As item number 17 today. So, Mr. Speaker, in accordance with what we agreed on yesterday, the minority leader will move the motion and we shall have a response from the minister. Maybe a few comments from me, and then we'll see how it goes. Mr. Speaker, thank you.
Very well. Honorable members, page number 12, item listed number 17, private members' motion. Honorable Minority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, thank you for the opportunity. I beg to move that this Honorable House constitutes a bipartisan committee to investigate the procurement contract between the government of the Republic of Ghana and Sheikh Ahmed Dalmouk Al Maktoum and one other for the supply of Sputnik V COVID vaccines and submit a report for the consideration of this House. Mr. Speaker, I do so invoking our implied and express powers as Parliament, the power of inquiry and the power of investigation. And Mr. Speaker, may I with respect refer you to Article 103 of the 1992 Constitution, which provides Parliament shall appoint standing committees and other committees as may be necessary for the effective discharge of its functions. And Mr. Speaker, committees of Parliament shall be charged with such functions, including the investigation and inquiry into the activities and administration of ministries, departments. Mr. Speaker, in this particular matter, I'm asking that Parliament investigates an agreement that has been signed. I have a copy of it. Mr. Speaker, I'll share two of it. Vaccine supply agreement between private office of H. Sheikh Ahmed Dalmouk Al Maktoum and the Ministry of Health, representing the government of the Republic of Ghana. And Mr. Speaker, Sputnik vaccines, 3.4 million at $19, excluding any duties and taxes. Total price will be 64 million Ghana cedis. Mr. Speaker, we will need a 7 or 9 member parliamentary committee to go into this matter. And Mr. Speaker, we on the minority side believe that despite the explanations given by the government on the failure and delay in procuring COVID-19 vaccines for the country, there must be a thorough investigation into this matter. The outcome of the probe will reveal whether the proper procurement processes were adhered to, and in particular, whether we are not in breach of the Constitution, particularly in Article 1815 of the 1992 Constitution, and as stated by the Supreme Court of Ghana on the nature of international business transactions. Mr. Speaker, we have the firm belief that the procurement of these vaccines falls within the meaning and remit of Article 1815 of the Constitution. We are not aware that this matter has been brought to Parliament for scrutiny and for Parliament to exercise its oversight. Mr. Speaker, we do so because it appears to be the case, a growing trend in Ghana, exploiting the new normal, that our laws are sidesteps, and it cannot be the Constitution, and it cannot be the Procurement Act of Ghana, even as revised Act 914. So, Mr. Speaker, we are calling for a parliamentary inquiry into this matter. Mr. Speaker, just 24 hours ago, I heard the chairman of the Finance Committee in a debate on a motion in this House, the Honorable Kwating, when he said that the amount for a vaccine, as he reported, captured in the Hansard was $10.55 United States dollars. Mr. Speaker, so how come that the state of Ghana is seeking to procure these vaccines at $19 US? Mr. Speaker, there is a second agreement, vaccine supply agreement between the same Ministry of Health and SL Global, procuring the vaccines at $26 US. I understand that there is some revision. $26 US per dose. Certainly, Mr. Speaker, is prohibitively high, and we think that even as we battle and combat COVID, it should be done with respect to the principles of the rule of law. It should be done with respect to the Procurement Act of Ghana. It should be done with respect to Article 1815 of the 1992 Constitution, which qualifies this agreement to be an international economic transaction. Mr. Speaker, Ghana is not alone. Many countries are procuring vaccines. Indeed, even in Brazil. And Mr. Speaker, the emphasis is mine. When you are buying from Pfizer, probably more expensive. AstraZeneca may not be an expensive one. Sputnik may not be the expensive one. Moderna probably can be expensive. So, Mr. Speaker, we need a bipartisan committee of Parliament in the exercise of our oversight, within the meaning of separation of powers and checks and balances, to hold the Ministry of Health and its departments respond to this contract, because it comes at a cost to the state, and the taxpayer money must be used optimally and judiciously. Mr. Speaker, the Supreme Court of Ghana have several rulings on this matter, that matters of international character and nature must be brought for parliamentary inquiry and for parliamentary scrutiny. Mr. Speaker, if you go out throughout the world, there is commitment by many countries to assist particularly poor countries to be able to acquire this particular vaccine. But ours in Ghana, two different agreements, one with the Maktoums, one with SL Global at $19 per dose and $26 per dose, which agreement have been committed. And Mr. Speaker, we need to know, because we have been told that because we are under COVID, our procurement laws should be set aside. We find that unacceptable and repugnant to the 1992 Constitution and repugnant to the Procurement Act of Ghana. It does not mean Ghana is the only country acquiring COVID vaccines. Everywhere in the world, vaccines are being acquired. Due process must be followed and due process must be respected. We cannot accept any argument that we should be buying these vaccines at $19 per dose and $26 per dose. What we have the chairman of the Finance Committee assure us that some of these vaccines is being procured. Bank approved loan of $200 million for 10-15. That makes a lot of significant difference. Mr. Speaker, we are to protect the public purse, to protect the Ghanaian taxpayer, ensure that there is value for money in the procurement of COVID vaccines for our country. We remain committed to every effort of government to COVID, but it should not be done to undermine the principles of the rule of law, to undermine our Procurement Act, and to undermine Article 1815 of the 1992 Constitution. As I have said, both India and Brazil, they are investigating even acquisitions of their COVID vaccines. Brazil, $300 for 20 million vaccines, brings a figure even lower than that of Ghana. India, the same is happening. And Mr. Speaker, it appears that we are just, and as is observed by the open source, it appears that many countries are beginning to set aside their laws in the name of it. I just have this quote. Public funds should not be spent in secret, and therefore these agreements, we are demanding further probe into it. Mr. Speaker, it is estimated that over $9 billion United States dollars are being spent by governments from public funds in the procurement of COVID vaccines across the world. And we know that some private sector charities are also spending on this particular matter. We know that governments have a role to play, and government's role can be at the diplomatic level, government to government. We will not accept the argument that middlemen are used. For middlemen, is their profitability which is their concern. Our concern is containing the public health epidemic, and we do not subscribe to an over-exploitation of a health crisis, of a public health pandemic, to get the taxpayer to lose this whooping amount of money that are being cited. Mr. Speaker, I beg to move. Thank you.
Yes, any seconder? Yes.
I'm most grateful, Mr. Speaker, and I rise to support the motion on page 12. Second, yes. Did I say that? Yes. Oh, sorry. I rise to support. I rise to second the motion.
Honorable member, you are seconded.
I rise to second the motion on page 12, itemized 17. Mr. Speaker, since the outbreak of COVID-19 pandemic, as a country, we have relied on taxes, levies, loans, contributions and donations from individuals and companies. Mr. Speaker, per the 2021 budget, as a country, we have spent not less than 19 billion Ghana cedis. The Speaker, out of the 19 billion Ghana cedis, we have not built a single hospital out of it. The Speaker, out of the 19 billion Ghana cedis, we have not been able to establish a single laboratory at any of our entry points. Mr. Speaker, out of the 19 billion Ghana cedis, we have not been able to pay our frontline health workers their allowances up to date. Mr. Speaker, we as a country and members of parliament must play our oversight responsibility well in order to put government on its toes so that the resources of this country will be put to judicious use. Mr. Speaker, per the ministry's own plan, that is COVID-19 vaccine deployment and vaccination plan, we are expected, or we are supposed to have vaccinated not less than 7 million people by now, by the end of June. This is their own document, Mr. Speaker. As I speak to you now, Mr. Speaker, we have not vaccinated more than 1 million people as a country. Mr. Speaker, during the budget estimate, the ministry, and for that matter, the minister, appeared before the committee and appeared before the health committee, and he indicated to the committee that they were not going to buy a dose of vaccine at more than $10 per dose. Mr. Speaker, we asked specific questions to that effect, and the minister assured the committee. Mr. Speaker, as has already been mentioned by the minority leader, there is a contract that has been signed by the government of Ghana, represented by the Ministry of Health, between the private office, Mr. Speaker, between the private office of H.H. Sheikh Ahmed Damouk Al Maktoum, private office. Mr. Speaker, there are two critical issues here. Number one, the issue of middlemen in the acquisition of vaccines. Mr. Speaker, as a country, we do not have a history of middlemen involvement in the purchase of vaccine in this country, and I challenge anybody to prove me wrong. Mr. Speaker, it is not for nothing that vaccines must be highly protected. Mr. Speaker, again, the WHO, when it comes to issues of health, they are the authority. They have known countries who are involving middlemen in the procurement of vaccines, because we risk getting substandard vaccines if we involve middlemen. We risk getting substandard vaccines. Mr. Speaker, when the ministry was asked why we are not dealing with government to government or government to manufacturer, Mr. Speaker, some of the answers in the public domain, I believe that the minister must come again. That they were finding it difficult to establish that government to government deal with Russia. Mr. Speaker, if the private office of the Sheikh was able to secure vaccines and sell to Ghana, and government of Ghana cannot establish government to government negotiations, then there's a problem with the country. Mr. Speaker, we have a president who has been the foreign minister before. And the irony of the issue is that, Mr. Speaker, COVID vaccine, the Sputnik group, they are developing another vaccine called the Sputnik Light, Mr. Speaker. In the whole world, Ghana is one of the countries they have chosen to do their clinical trials. That specific country that the minister is telling us that they are finding it very difficult to do government to government, Mr. Speaker, has been in this country. They've gone through our institutions, they've been cleared, and they are here. The company is here. They are doing clinical trials. And we cannot negotiate with them to bring us COVID vaccines. Mr. Speaker, even as an ordinary member of parliament, together with my colleague Honorable Okujetu, we had access to the embassy and we had a lovely discussions with them. Mr. Speaker, I am saying, without Russian embassy, I am saying that the Russians are willing and ready to assist Ghana within their capacity. Mr. Speaker, so the issue of involving middlemen, Mr. Speaker, since the outbreak of this pandemic, the RDIF, the Russian Direct Investment Fund, has dealt with not less than 30 countries, involving African countries. Kenya, Rwanda, Algeria. Why are we not part of it? Why do we always want to be part of the West stories and not the good stories? Kenya, Rwanda, and those countries. They've had access and dealt with them. The Speaker, they are telling us that they are finding it very difficult to have government-to-government negotiations with the Russian people. Mr. Speaker, let me come to the issue of pricing. The Sputnik issued a press statement in Russia that in the international market, we should not buy a dose of Sputnik more than $10. Why are we buying at $19? What is the issue? Why about 90% markup? What is the issue? $19, Mr. Speaker. I think that to the extent that the Minister for Finance has confirmed that Ghana has made commitment in the form of LC. The Minister for Finance is on tape to have confirmed that this country will make a commitment in the form of LC. Mr. Speaker, I believe you agree with me that LC is as good as any form of payment. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, I think that we need, if indeed we are interested in protecting the public purse, if indeed we want to perform our oversight responsibility well, Mr. Speaker, I invite every member of Parliament to support this motion so that we establish a bipartisan committee to investigate this matter to its logical conclusion. I thank you for the opportunity.
Yes, leadership. Any indication?
Mr. Speaker, I was just relating to what agreement that we came to yesterday, that the motion will be moved, and then one person from here will speak to it. The minister would make a reaction, and then we'll make a determination as to the composition of the committee. That's what I was relating to. That's what I was relating to.
Honorable Minority Leader, hold on. The motion has been moved and it has been seconded. It is now for the consideration of the House. So I'm being guided that we take, is it? We take 1-1 or 2-2. So I take one from this side, I take one from this side. Then I'll invite the minister to also make a comment. So I'll invite Honorable Minority Chief Whip.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this is a very important motion, and I want to urge all my colleagues on both sides of the House to pay attention to the issues that are being raised that will help us to form an informed decision at the tail end, so that we do not draw this with the usual thing that we do on party lines. Mr. Speaker, you've heard the mover and the seconder of the motion. Mr. Speaker, I just want to draw the attention of this House and why we must compose this committee. I'm sorry to say, our colleague, the Minister for Health, had not been sincere to the Committee of Parliament. Because, Mr. Speaker, I held in my hand the vote and proceedings of Wednesday, 24th of March, 2021. 2021, yes. During budget hearing at the committee, precisely on 22nd of March, The meeting was held around 11 a.m. That was Monday, 22nd. When the minister was telling the committee of this house that, oh, we should help approve the allocation for vaccines because no vaccine will be procured for more than $10. This was on 22nd March. The minister knew very well that by that 22nd March, on the 9th of March, he had gone to sign a contract for $19. Yet, he had the courage to come to the Committee of Parliament on 22nd to virtually lie to the committee that this vaccine will not be procured for more than $10 US. Mr. Speaker, this is the reason, one of the reasons why this must be probed. Because if a member of parliament and a minister of this house, a minister of parliament, a minister of health.
Honorable Minority Leader, hold on. Yes, honorable member for. I've forgotten your constituency. No, I just want to refer to the constituency. Doma Central, sorry.
Honorable Speaker, I'm getting a bit surprised at the insinuations being casted on me by the minority chief. Mr. Speaker, I cannot fathom having signed an agreement and coming here to tell the House that we are not going to buy vaccines for more than $10, what I had done for $19. The circumstances within which this agreement was done will be laid bare when the committee that we are moving the motion to set up is actually set up. And I'm surprised at when we are going to set up a committee to investigate and we are not coming up with issues that may be actually investigated at that committee level. I couldn't have done that. And when the committee is set up, Mr. Speaker, I am very ready to tell the chamber, to tell the committee, circumstances within which this was happened. We had a plan, yes, indeed, to procure vaccines.
Honorable Minister, you get the opportunity. But, Honorable Minority Chief Whip,
Mr. Speaker,
please.
I should want him to withdraw that word from me.
Yes, I'm coming to that.
I will be sincere to the House. And
Honorable Minority Leader, please, kindly withdraw the word lie.
If my colleague finds the use of the word lie offensive, Mr. Speaker, he knows that I have a lot of respect for him. I withdraw that and replace it with misled the committee of this House. Because as at the time that he was talking to the committee, Mr. Speaker, this was the document that was given to us at the committee which he led the presentation. Said that the vaccine will not cost us more, that's estimate cost for vaccine. This was supplied us by him at the committee. That the estimate cost for vaccine will be averaging not exceeding $7 US. And then the operational cost for each vaccine too will not be more than $3 US. When you put the two together, that gives you $10 US. Yet, as at that time that he was speaking to us, he had already signed this agreement, which was dated on the 9th of March. Mr. Speaker,
Honorable Minister, please, can't you wait? You give you a lot of time to.
Honorable Speaker, I just want to draw his attention to the fact that averages are not specific to this. He is talking about, or not average.
Yes, Honorable Minority Chief Whip, please. Please, order.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I'm happy that the minister will have an opportunity to respond to all these things in realities. But it is surprising that the Minister for Health, who is a chartered accountant, will be telling you and I and the people of this country that when you talk about average cost of $10,
yes,
the average
Honorable,
can take
hold on
20.
once again. Hold on once again. Honorable member for Asante Achim Central.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I beg to seek your guidance as to what is happening. I am being told that a committee is set up, a motion has been moved and seconded. What I am not sure is whether the Minister for Health is being prosecuted by my friend on the other side. Otherwise, all these things that he's saying are preempting what the committee is going to investigate into. The committee must be set up and facts has to be presented to the committee. Are we prosecuting the Minister of Health before the committee is set up? I seek your guidance, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, Honorable Minority Chief Whip, as well as people who will be contributing the debate, please do not preempt the work of the
Thank you,
proposal.
Mr. Speaker. Nobody is going to preempt what the committee will be doing. But you need to bear some facts that will support this House to be informed that truly the issues are weighty and deserve a committee to investigate it. Other than that, the committee will be formed, even informing it. People may disagree that these issues we are raising are light, and these are not things that will require a special parliamentary committee. That is why you must raise some heavy issues without necessarily making a conclusion. So that is well understood. But Mr. Speaker, the other thing that we need the other reason why we must investigate this is this. If you go into the agreement, paragraph 4.3, Mr. Speaker, it talks about these costs exclude every other thing. Taxes, transportation, almost a lot of the items have been excluded. Meaning that the true cost of this vaccine may end up being far more than even the 64.6 million that we are talking about. Mr. Speaker, dollars. This requires us to go into it and find out that why will we sign and virtually exempt the seller of paying almost everything, that we will have to foot those bills again, in addition to the $19. This requires that we need to investigate it to be able to understand why this. Mr. Speaker, another very important thing is that if you go into the agreement, paragraph 3.1 and then 4.2, it talks about, the agreement says that even before it is signed, they will have to supply us 15,000 doses of the Sputnik V vaccine. And that one has to be paid for. Now, Mr. Speaker, we want to also be able to know when this, because the agreement in 4.2 says these 15,000 doses have been supplied. We want to be able to know, has these 15,000 doses been paid for as per the agreement? This requires that a committee does the investigation to be able to determine whether any amount of money has been paid based on the agreement that the minister signed. Again, Mr. Speaker, when you look at authorization and you go to paragraph 3.8 of this agreement, WHO, the World Health Organization, has not certified this vaccine for use in the world. Yet our Food and Drugs Authority in Ghana had gone ahead of the WHO to certify the use of this vaccine. This requires an investigation by Parliament to find out why will the World Health Organization not yet certify a vaccine. Our country will be willing to spend $64 million to procure a vaccine that has not been certified by WHO. This requires that we investigate.
Honorable Leader, hold on. Yes, Honorable Member for Asante Achim.
Mr. Speaker, I am still not sure of what procedure is going on in this House. I see this as a debate and not a request to set up a committee to investigate. One side cannot get up and say that I am prosecuting another person or another member of the House in the name of a process which I think that this process
the honorable member is out of order. You can actually request that a committee be set up, but you cannot preempt the committee. You cannot preempt whatever is going to be discussed before the
Yes,
committee.
honorable member.
Words like misled and whatnot are conclusive. So that if you conclude that the honorable minister has misled the House, what are we going to investigate?
Honorable member. Well noted, but the motion is now before the House. We are inviting contributors. Before we put the question as to whether the motion should be accepted, then we go ahead and set the committee. So,
Mr. Speaker,
please, but be snappy.
I just want to read
Honorable Leader, be snappy, please.
7.3 of the agreement for all of us to hear. Mr. Speaker, for the avoidance of doubt, the parties acknowledge and agree that the seller is not a distributor of the vaccine and is not a manufacturer, and none of the seller or any of the connected persons shall be subject to any liability under the agreement or otherwise for any loss or suffered by or to the buyer or any person whoever, including patients and their relatives, resulting from the use of the vaccine, including liability to any claim that may be made against the seller by any third person. Mr. Speaker, how can our Minister for Health put his hand in agreement to a
Honorable
of the
Leader,
vaccine
hold on again.
the one who is selling it to you, you cannot hold that person responsible?
Honorable, hold on again. Yes, Honorable Chairman for Health Committee.
Mr. Speaker, I stand to support the position of the honorable member. What procedure are you using? Mr. Speaker, my understanding of proceedings in this House, you've spoken about, you move a motion, you second it, you put a question, you can do consideration. I don't think that we are setting good precedents.
Yeah, Honorable Chairman.
Can we know where we are as far as
Honorable Chairman.
concerned?
The procedure is that a motion has been moved, it has been seconded. It is before the House now. So members are allowed to contribute before the question is put. So please let's hold on. I'll come to you. So Honorable Leader, please.
Mr. Speaker, lastly, in supporting this, I just want to draw members' attention. In one of the minister's communication to the Ghanaian public, he said that they were interacting and dealing with the deputy ambassador of the Russian embassy in Accra. Mr. Speaker, this is something that is unbelievable. There's no any person with title deputy ambassador in the Russian embassy in Accra. Colleagues, this is a very serious matter, and we must set up this committee to investigate this matter beyond reasonable doubt and settle it so that the abuse of the use of the COVID fund since its inception, that would not be able to get people to account for how they use the money to cook hot meal, how they distributed the money to individuals in their homes, how they use it, PPAs, and what have you. This is an opportunity for us to let the Ministry of Health and its officials to know we cannot use COVID. We cannot use COVID to waste state resources. I thank you very much for the opportunity to support this.
Yes. Yes, Honorable Majority Leader.
The Speaker, thank you very much. To also lend my voice to the motion moved by the Minority Leader on behalf of the multitude. Mr. Speaker, this is a 5-line motion, which is being moved by a 7-line members in this House. Mr. Speaker, I believe that at the heart of this motion is the exercise of the oversight responsibility of this House. And I believe we should commend the movers of the motion. Parliament, indeed, is making progress. Times were in this very House. Times were in this House when motions were moved and where conspiratorially the motion came to be suppressed in this House to the applause of members in this House. Today, these members have been liberated. The tongue-tiedness is now out of the way. Mr. Speaker, Parliament is growing, and I believe that should be the trend. Mr. Speaker, at the heart of the motion moved by the minority leader is the imperatives of Article 103(3), which provides that Parliament, Speaker, with your indulgence, I want to read Article 103(3) reads, committees of Parliament shall be charged with, including the investigation and inquiry into the activities and administration of ministries and departments, as Parliament may determine, and such investigation and inquiries may extend to proposal for legislation. Speaker, we want to improve our governance, and that is the responsibility of Parliament. It is not a we and them affair. And Mr. Speaker, that is why we should all come together to support this motion. I want to pray this House that selectivity does not inure to democracy. Mr. Speaker, somebody in the front bench is pointing to me that, oh, is it you? It's rather him. It's rather him who should be bowing his head, because he was most supportive of the events of yesterday. He who the car fits, let him wear it. But Mr. Speaker, the man in the white beard. That's a car fit you. I don't remember. Mr. Speaker, as I was saying, the issues are clear. What I don't like about this is throwing up statements that one would consider as very prejudicial. We're starting up a committee. If we agree, let's deal with it. What are the issues that the minority leader is seeking to raise? Is talking to issues of the high cost of the vaccine. So, in that regard, we may not be having value for money. That is if procurement has taken place. The Speaker, another issue that is raised is whether or not middlemen came into the fray. This may not be the first time that we are doing this. Middlemen being employed by government to do that. This is not the first time. However, is it the case that we must follow that route? Or is it the case that we must determine that in these matters, government should deal with their counterparts? So, in my view, that is the second matter that is coming up. The third one relates to procurement processes. Is it tidy? The fourth one, whether or not it's an international business and must be submitted to the imperatives of Article 815. Is it the case that in an emergency situation, we can set aside these ones and deal with it and perhaps later come to ratify the agreement? These are matters that we should apply ourselves to. Mr. Speaker, the other matter would also involve whether or not we may have to set up a new committee to deal with this, or perhaps relate to the Committee of Finance or the Committee on Health or a joint committee or whatever. Let's not forget that all committees in this House are bipartisan committees. The colleague is not talking about the setting up of an ad hoc committee or a special committee, which we could form anyway. We could form a special committee or an ad hoc committee, or perhaps related to any of these committees, if it should be a joint committee or whatever. But that will be determined by this House. Finally, Mr. Speaker, I believe we will have to deal with the terms and conditions. If we have to set up a special or an ad hoc committee, we have to determine the terms and conditions of that committee. But, Mr. Speaker, by and large, I would think that setting up a committee, an ad hoc committee or a special committee, perhaps will sit well with the request that is being made by the minority leader in moving the motion. As I said, if it's going to go to a committee, then is it needful to relate to allegations and so on? What then would the committee be doing? Looks like we want to exhaust the issues on the floor. If you want to exhaust the issue on the floor, then it's for the House plenary to make a determination. And I thought that route was not a good route that my colleague, the chief whip for the minority leader, was trying to veer onto. Even the Honorable Akando is in usual shadow boxing, wanted to other extraneous matters into the motion. But, Mr. Speaker, at the heart of it is that Parliament must look at this matter. Perhaps we may have to listen to the minister responsible for health. And I want to believe that he will not litigate the matter here. Let it go to the committee. The committee will come with their report, investigate and come with their report. And who knows, perhaps it will help us to strengthen legislation. If there are gaps in the pieces of legislation that we have, perhaps it will help us to close up the gaps, or perhaps to even come up with a new piece of legislation. That is what democracy is about. So, Mr. Speaker, I believe that we are growing Parliament, and we should be together in this exercise. We shouldn't wake up tomorrow to find people departing from the principle that we are establishing today. Let us be united in our collectivity. And in our collectivity, we shall be indivisible. Mr. Speaker, thank you very much for the opportunity.
Yes, Honorable Minister for Health.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'm hearing from the other side, Minister Emobo, Minister Emobo. The minister will never be mobile.
Yes. Sure.
And I'll say this on all confidence, that I'm very happy that the entire House agrees that a committee should be set up to investigate the procurement of this vaccine. Mr. Speaker,
yes, Honorable Minister, hold on. Yes, Honorable Atto, what is it?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the Honorable Minister of Health, in his submission, said the minister will never be mobile. Mr. Speaker, some of us don't understand the meaning of a mobile. So can he please explain to us what is the meaning of a mobile?
Minister, may you respectfully withdraw mobile and move on.
Mr. Speaker.
Minister, don't respond to it. Just withdraw that mobile phone.
I don't even know what English word to use for mobile. Again. Mr. Speaker, I have said earlier on that I'm happy a committee is going to be set up to investigate the issues that are being raised on the agreement and the subsequent intended procurement of the Sputnik vaccine at the price at which the agreement was done. Mr. Speaker, during the pandemic, I was leading a battle and I was at a war front. And my preoccupation was more on protecting lives of Ghanaians.
Exactly.
Than whatever else.
Of course. Yeah.
Honorable members, please, let's
Lives
give
are
you.
important.
Mr. Speaker, I'm not going to respond to the issues that have been raised. I believe at the committee level, I will get the opportunity to actually respond adequately to issues being raised. But what I want to say, Mr. Speaker, is the fact that I'll reiterate protection of lives as a priority to the issues that are being raised. I will demonstrate at the committee level that I have never caused any financial losses to the state by virtue of the intention to procure and acquire vaccines to fight the battle. Mr. Speaker, it is true that the government has spent a lot of money in battling COVID-19, but the investment we have made has yielded positive results, and that is situated in the performance of how this COVID battle has been battled in this country. Mr. Speaker, WHO assessment indicates that two countries that got things right with COVID management is Ghana and South Korea. And this is on record. And we couldn't have done that. Ghana and South Korea are the two countries on WHO assessment that got it right when it comes to management of COVID in the world, not only in Africa, but across the globe. How did we do it? Mr. Speaker, we invested not only with us, but with our blood, with strength, sleepless nights, good thinking, science and data to have arrived at where we are. Mr. Speaker, when we were dying in February and March and April, nobody raised these issues. After fighting the battle to the extent that now things are stabilizing for us, that is when we are coming out. But the president warned those of us who were leading the battle that whatever we do, we should situate ourselves properly because there will be time for accountability. And I'm not surprised that it is even now. Mr. Speaker, I am ever ready, on behalf of government, like I signed the agreement, to demonstrate that we did things that will protect the states, the population, and to make sure that we won the battle against COVID. And that is exactly what we have done, Mr. Speaker. I'll wait for when I'm invited to come and sit in front of the committee to answer questions that I believe I can easily answer. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, honorable members, at the conclusion of the debate, the question is as many as are in favor of the motion, private members' motion, say aye. Those against the motion say no. Honorable members, the ayes have it. The motion has been adopted. Yes,
Mr. Speaker, we're consulting on the membership of the committee, and when we do so, we have to come together and determine the terms and conditions, which I guess cannot be done now. We'll do so, we'll fashion the terms and conditions, and then tomorrow Tomorrow we'll come to the House with the conditions of that committee.
Speaker, I propose to my colleague, the majority leader, that I agree with his thinking that a special ad hoc bipartisan committee of 8, but I understand he said 9, should be set up to probe Ghana's acquisition of COVID vaccines and related matters. And I do agree with him that tomorrow we will submit before you the terms and conditions of the committee to guide the remit and mandate of the committee and when they should report back to Parliament of their findings. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Well, so am I to hold on with? So now we are going to have a special ad hoc committee to investigate the matter before us. But the membership will be communicated to the House in due course, hopefully tomorrow, with the terms and conditions. Hello, honorable members. Tomorrow we'll give you the terms, the condition, the period that the committee is going to use to investigate the matter and report back to the House. Yes, Deputy Majority Leader. Any indications?
Mr. Speaker, nothing now remains. Mr. Speaker, nothing now remains except to. Mr. Speaker, I am saying that. Do you have any? What? Mr. Speaker, I move that this House be adjourned till tomorrow at 2 p.m. Mr. Speaker, with respect, tomorrow at 10 in the forenoon.
Yes. Speaker, I beg to second the motion for adjournment for 10 a.m. tomorrow morning. Thank you.
Yes, Majority Leader, since we came at 2. Leader, since we came at 2.
10 in the forenoon.
Yes, I understand, but since we came at 2 and it's not yet 6, we have to move a motion.
Mr. Speaker, I move the House to adjourn till tomorrow at 10 in the forenoon.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to second the motion.
Honorable members, the motion has been moved. Honorable members, the motion has been moved and has been seconded for the adjournment of today's sitting. So the House has accordingly been adjourned to tomorrow, 10 o'clock in the forenoon. Honorable members, the House stands adjourned.